Good evening and welcome to the Connecticut Department of Transportation's Public Information Meeting for project number 56-319, Rehabilitation of Connecticut Bridge number 03514 and New York State DOT Bridge 1052991, Interstate 684 over the Byram River in Greenwich, Connecticut and North Castle, New York. My name is Susan Morno and I'm a project engineer with the Connecticut Department of Transportation. I would like to welcome everyone who's taken the time to tune in for tonight's presentation. We hope this will be informative and we are able to answer all your questions and concerns so that by the time we are done, you will have a better understanding of our project. Before I get into the presentation and introduce the project team, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items and explain tonight's format. Our presentation will last approximately 20 minutes, and once it's completed, we will host a live question and answer session. A recording of this presentation will be available after the live event on YouTube. Closed captioning, including non-English translations, will be available at that time. You will have three means of communicating with us during the live Q&A session. You can send an email, leave a voicemail, or send a chat using the Zoom Q&A. The first is by sending an email to the project email address, which is dotproject56319@ct.gov. Again, that's dotproject 56-319@ct.gov. The second is by leaving a voicemail at 860-594-2020. Please note that we will be checking for emails and voicemails periodically during the presentation so that we can address your comments and answer your questions. Please also remember to leave contact information if you leave a voicemail so that we may reach out to you directly if for some reason we can't get back to you during the live question and answer session. The third method of communication is by using the Zoom Q&A feature, which I will explain now. In order to use this format, click on the Q&A symbol at the bottom of the screen. This will bring up the Q&A chat window. This is shown in the picture on the right of the slide. Type your question in the box at the bottom. Once you have finished typing, you can hit send and the project team will then see your question. On the screen, you will see your question and any other questions that have already been answered. Please note that even though you won't see them yet, the project team may have other questions to respond to and will respond to all questions in the order they are received. A recording of tonight's entire presentation, including the Q&A session, will be stored on the project webpage. The webpage can be found at portal.ct.gov/DOT Greenwich 56-319. Lastly, please remember that you can ask questions or provide comments through February 9, 2023 via either email or telephone. But the Zoom chat function is only available during tonight's live Q&A session. We would like you to know that no person shall, on the basis of race, color, or national origin, be excluded from participation or subject to discrimination in the development of this project. We would also greatly appreciate it if you could complete the voluntary post-meeting survey at portal.ct.gov/CTDOT survey. The results of this survey will help us improve these public meetings going forward. The civil rights notice to the public is available at portal.ct.gov/business/office-of-equity/title-vi-page. The links to both the civil rights flyer and the survey are located on the previously mentioned project webpage. Thank you for bearing with me while I went over the ground rules. I would now like to begin the presentation by introducing the project team. With the Connecticut Department of Transportation, we have Bart Sweeney, the Division Chief of Bridges. His photo is the first on the left of your screen. To the right of him is Derek Lassard, the Principal Engineer of the Consultant Bridge Design, Consultant Liaison Engineering Program. Next is Alvaro Garcia Jr., the Supervising Engineer in the CLE program. My photo is the last on the right, and again, my name is Susan Morno, and I am the Project Engineer for the CLE program. Supporting us from the New York State Department of Transportation is George Crimavaroli, the Regional Structures Manager. BL Companies is the Consultant Liaison Engineer on this project and will work with the Connecticut Department of Transportation to administer the project. The first photo on the left is Jennifer Usher. Jennifer is the CLE project manager for BL. To the right of Jennifer is Quinn Duffy, the project engineer from BL. You will hear from both Quinn and Jennifer later this evening. Quinn will describe the existing condition of the two bridges, and Jennifer will be the MC for the question and answer session. The designer for the project is McFarland Johnson. Representing McFarland Johnson tonight are Gene McCarthy and David Call. Gene's photo is to the right of Quinn, and he is the senior project manager. Dave's photo is the last on the right, and he is the project manager. They will both be explaining the proposed rehabilitation of the structure. I will now turn things over to Quinn Duffy from BL Companies, who will begin the actual presentation part of this evening's program.
Thank you, Susan. As Susan said, my name is Quinn Duffy. I'm a project engineer with BL Companies, and I am assisting the Connecticut Department of Transportation administer this project. You can see the project location here with leaders pointing to the Connecticut Bridge, which is 03514, and the New York Bridge, which is 1052991. We typically refer to these types of structures as sister bridges because they carry the same route over the same river. You can see that this project is located on the northern end of the Connecticut Panhandle. The project is located in District 3 in Connecticut and District 8 in New York. Here we have a little bit more of a zoomed in aerial location of the project. You can see the white dashed state line that passes right between the sister bridges, which are outlined in red. The Byram River is shown in blue, Cutler Road to the east in Greenwich, Connecticut, and the edge of the IBM campus to the west in North Castle, New York. We will be referring to a couple of elements in a bridge structure that may not be familiar to you throughout the presentation, so I'd like to take a moment to introduce them. The substructure, shown here in red, is the component that supports all other elements in a bridge. The substructure can include abutments and piers, and it does include parts of the structure that are underground. The substructure supports the superstructure, which is shown here in blue. Superstructures can consist of beams or girders, or in the case of the structures we will be discussing tonight, box beams. These beams support a deck, which is shown in light green, which is the component you drive on. Decks typically have a wearing surface or pavement on them as a cover. The last component I want to point out are the parapets, which are shown in a darker green color. These can be anything from metal railings to solid concrete and protect drivers on the structure. All right, here we have a general plan, which is a plan as if you were looking down on the structure from a drone or a plane. This is the Connecticut Bridge, which carries I-684 northbound over the Byram River. I'll show you the New York Bridge in the next following slides. These bridges are comprised of single span structures consisting of pre-stressed concrete box beams that are supported by reinforced concrete abutments. The combined average daily traffic on both the Connecticut and New York bridges is just under 71,000 vehicles per day, and that is based on the 2019 Connecticut Department of Transportation traffic log. Here you can see the general plan for the New York Bridge. It's very, very similar to the Connecticut sister bridge. All right, here you can see the existing typical section of the Connecticut Bridge. It's as if you had sliced it like a piece of cake. You can see the precast, pre-stressed box beam superstructure that supports 3 12-foot travel lanes, a 6-foot left shoulder, and a 10-foot right shoulder with an open steel bridge railing. Very similar to the Connecticut Bridge, the New York Bridge also supports 3 12-foot travel lanes, a 10-foot left shoulder, and a 6-foot right shoulder. The main difference between these two structures is the cross slope. You can see on the New York Bridge, there is no high point or crown like there was on the Connecticut Bridge. Here we have a couple of bridge approach photos. On the left, you can see the Connecticut Bridge, which carries I-684 southbound. This is a picture that's taken looking north. Similar, on the right, we have the New York Bridge, which carries I-684 northbound, and that is looking north as well. All right, so a couple of photos of the existing structure. On the left, you can see the north elevation of the Connecticut Bridge. On the right, you can see what we consider is a standard underside of deck photo. In the photo on the right, you can see water in between the beams on the right and middle side of the photo, which is a very good indication that the waterproofing membrane on the bridge has failed. Here we have a couple more photos. The large photo on the left was taken from the underside of the structure, and you can see that there is some vertical misalignment between the beams. On the top right, you can see a couple of spalls, which are areas where the concrete has broken off with exposed rebar. And rebar is reinforcing used in concrete structures to make them stronger. You can also see rust forming on that rebar in the photo as well. In the photo on the bottom right, you can see the southwest approach guide rail, which has a bent and disconnected post. All right, so for the purpose and need of the structure, I'm going to focus on the Connecticut Bridge because that was really the driving force behind this project. The purpose of the project is to address the safety concerns and structural deteriorations of the existing structure. The overall condition of the Connecticut Bridge is poor. As seen in the photos on the previous slides, the pre-stressed box beams show minor spalling with exposed rebar. The post-tensioning strands have deteriorated or failed, which causes the box beams to act independently of each other. That makes the beams look like they're piano keys being played at different times as cars and trucks travel over the structure. That piano keying has caused severe deterioration to the bridge deck and wearing surface. The metal bridge rail has deterioration on both structures. However, you can see on the previous slide, excuse me, that the bridge rail has been replaced on the Connecticut Bridge, leaving it in moderately better condition than that of the New York Bridge. There's a couple photos on this slide as well that show some of the deteriorations. The photo on the left is the existing bridge rail on the Connecticut structure. That's the bridge rail that has been replaced since the bridges were constructed originally. And the photo on the right gives you an idea of what the deck condition looks like, specifically at a joint. You can see areas of the pavement patching are missing, and then there's missing joint material as well. This creates an uncomfortable experience for the traveling public or the driver. All right, so that brings me to how the New York Bridge became part of this project. Initially, the scope of work for the project was limited to the Connecticut Bridge, but in order to perform the proposed rehabilitation, which our consultant, McFarland Johnson, will dive into shortly, we needed to determine how to maintain traffic during construction. The only way to do this would be to construct a highway crossover and use the New York Sister Bridge to assist in maintaining flow of traffic in either direction. However, there are safety concerns with the existing bridge railing on the New York Bridge. As I mentioned earlier, the railing on the Connecticut Bridge has been replaced since the bridges were constructed, and that is not the case on the New York structure. So through coordination with New York State DOT, and given the fact that these structures were constructed at the same time, they've been exposed to the same elements and they carry about the same amount of traffic. The same rehabilitation really should be performed on both. This also provided a really unique opportunity to address both bridges under one contract and working with the New York State DOT, thus the inclusion of the New York Bridge as part of the project. So that's how we have come before you this evening to present the rehabilitations of these two structures. With that, I'm going to pass it off to David Cull, who is the lead bridge engineer with McFarland Johnson.
All right, thank you, Quinn. So we went through a pretty extensive alternatives analysis to determine the best approach to rehabilitate these structures. And what we decided, what we are moving forward with, is to do a superstructure replacement, which is shown here in the orange. We're going to be replacing the beams, the barriers, the concrete deck, the wearing surface, and the membrane. Which basically we're going to be keeping the existing abutments and putting the new beams and the new superstructure on top of the existing abutment. We're going to be using modern construction details and modern components so that we can extend the service life of those abutments and really get the biggest bang for our buck when we rehabilitate this structure. We're trying to keep the impacts to a minimum, so we're trying to keep the approach roadway work, which is shown here in yellow, to the smallest amount as possible so we can get in and get out as fast as possible, which I'll be talking about here in a little bit. But There will be a little bit of approach roadway work shown in yellow, and that's just basically ripping up some of the sub base and putting down new pavement so we can match into what the existing is right there. So this is a general view of the Connecticut Bridge and the work that's going to be performed. If we move on to the next slide there, Quinn. See that it's pretty similar also for the New York Bridge. We're going to be doing the same thing. Superstructure replacement, approach slab, and approach roadway work. We move on to the next slide. Taking another slice of that pie, this is what our proposed structure is going to look like. We're going to be keeping the same lane configuration, 3 lanes in each direction. We will be putting a modern bridge barrier that meets current design criteria on the bridge. So one of the things that we have to do, because we're keeping the existing abutments, is shorten our shoulders by a couple inches on either side. We're going to be putting a modern concrete barrier on top of the bridge, and because of that, we're going to have to go from a 6-foot shoulder down to basically a 5'9" 3/4 for the Connecticut Bridge. And we move over to the New York Bridge. You'll see that it's pretty similar. I'll talk about those closure pours there in a second on the next slide. Same thing here. You can see the shoulders have just been reduced a little bit. So one of the things when we were taking a look at this is how are we going to build this bridge, and how can we minimize impacts to the greatest extent possible? And the method that we chose to move forward with is called accelerated bridge construction, or ABC. And what that is that minimizes the closure duration to the greatest extent possible. And the way we're going to go about doing that is we're actually going to build most of the superstructure in advance prior to when we actually have to get out there and shut down the bridge and divert traffic, which Gina will be talking about in a second. One of the interesting and fun aspects of this is when we actually get out there to close the bridge to traffic, most of the bridge will have already been built. And it's just a matter of us or the contractor taking it and dropping it into place and then connecting it like a bunch of Lego sets. So what we're going to be using for this superstructure is what are called prefabricated bridge units, or PBUs. This is a technique for accelerated bridge construction. It's very common. It's been done successfully all throughout the country, where we basically take 2 beams and pour the modern concrete deck on top of them, and we ship those pieces out and we put them into place. And those little closure pours, which if you hit the slide there, Quinn, which are circled in red, those are connected using concrete we call high early strength concrete, or concrete that achieves its design strength very quickly in a matter of hours. We use special mixture component to achieve that strength. And we put these beams into place, we pour those closure pours, and then we come in and we put a modern membrane and pave on top of the structure. And we can open it back up to traffic pretty soon thereafter. So we can, using these ABC construction techniques, we can take what would usually take weeks or months to perform, and we can get it down to a matter of days. So this is a typical section here showing some PBUs. If we move to the next slide, Quinn, we can show some actual real life PBUs of what's going to happen. Here's a picture of a PBU on a successfully completed project. It's a little hard to see there, but there's 2 beams with the concrete deck, and some of the reinforcing that's sticking out there are those hoops, and that's what's used to connect to the next PBU, which we show in the next slide here. This is just an aerial view of another successful ABC project that used PBUs, where these PBUs are backed in trucks. Then we use a crane, drop them into place, and you can kind of see, you look closely, those same hoops sticking out. They're spaced about a foot apart, and we fill it with concrete. And then we come back, let it cure, put a membrane, pave over top of it, and we're good to go. So that's a basic summary of the structural component of this. But one of the big factors with ABC construction is how do we maintain traffic during closure, because we need to give the contractor access. And here to talk about that is a project manager for McFarland Johnson for us, who's leading the project and specifically the traffic control of this, is Gene McCarthy. So I want to turn it over to him.
Great. Thanks very much, Dave. So as Dave stated, in order to complete the bridge rehabilitation, we need to close the bridges. And since Interstate 684 is such an important regional traffic corridor, traffic must be maintained during this construction. And again, this will be using accelerated bridge to accomplish this. So each of these bridges will require 2 weekend bridge closures. These closures will begin on a Friday night after commute hours and end early Monday morning before the commute begins. The total closure for each weekend is 55 hours, and there will be a total of 4 of these weekend closures. So in order to close the bridges and maintain traffic in both northbound and southbound directions on I-684, these temporary crossovers will be constructed in the median, allowing 2 lanes of traffic in each direction to remain open during construction. Now, these crossovers will actually be constructed early in the process, so they'll be ready to go when we actually need to close the roads for the construction. Now, as shown in this slide, the southbound bridge in New York will be the first to be rehabilitated. The existing 3 lanes of traffic in each direction will first be reduced to 2 lanes approaching the project area. During this period, the southbound traffic will use the temporary crossover shown here to cross the median and use the northbound bridge in Connecticut to cross the Byram River. Once over the river, traffic will use the next crossover to return to the existing southbound lanes. This allows the contractor complete access to the bridge under construction, which is shown here in red. The next slide depicts how the 4 lanes of traffic, 2 in each direction, will be accommodated on these bridges. So a temporary barrier will separate the opposing directions of traffic. Once the 2 weekend closures to rehabilitate the New York bridges are complete, the crossover will be reconstructed to accommodate the closure of the Connecticut bridge, which is shown on this next slide. Here you can see the crossover configuration for the construction of the northbound bridge in Connecticut. Basically, it's the same as the prior situation, but the northbound traffic will use the temporary crossover to cross the median and use the newly rehabilitated northbound bridge in New York to cross the Byram River. Now, once the 2 weekend closures to rehabilitate the Connecticut bridge shown here, once those are done, all the crossovers will be removed and the median will be restored to its original condition. And I will now turn it over to Quinn Duffy.
All right, thank you, Gene. All right, so to perform this construction, we do need permits from both Connecticut and New York. For Connecticut, we need the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, or CTDOT, Stormwater Discharge Permit, and the CTDOT Flood Management General Certification, or FMGC, which is a CTDOT permit that's administered by the Connecticut Department of Transportation. For New York, we will need the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation general permit and general permit for stormwater discharge from construction activities. And we will also need the, the New York State Form Perm 33, which is essentially a highway work permit similar to an encroachment permit. We do not anticipate any right-of-way since our project limits are within the state-owned right-of-way in that area, that median between the 2 highways. And we do not have any anticipated utility impacts associated with this project either. All right, before I wrap it up and get to the question and answer portion of tonight's presentation, I'd just like to run through the project cost and schedule. Each structure has an estimated cost of $9 million, making the total estimated construction cost for the project $18 million. This project will be paid for using state and federal funding. And because this project is on an interstate, the federal government will cover 90% of the cost of construction, and both Connecticut and New York, the states, will cover the remaining 10%. We expect that construction will begin in the spring of 2024. Similar to what Jean had mentioned, in the spring, around April, when construction begins, it'll really be focused on the construction of the crossovers. It will not impact any mainline traffic until the actual bridge closures, which we expect to happen in July and August. Also, please note that the schedule is preliminary and predicated on the availability of funding. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Jennifer Usher, who is with BL Companies. She's a program manager of the Bridge CLE program, and she will run you through the same information that Sue ran through at the beginning of the presentation on how to submit questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Quinn. I appreciate that introduction. Yeah, as Quinn mentioned, my name is Jennifer Usher. I do work with BL Companies alongside Quinn, and I will be acting as your MC this evening. Just want to take a moment to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to join us this evening. This is an opportunity for all of us to engage the public, make sure you guys have an opportunity so that we can answer your questions, certainly hear any comments or concerns you may have as well, and have those considered as we move forward into the final design phase. As Quinn mentioned, and as you can see on the screen there are a couple different ways you can get a hold of us. The first is by email, and that is at dotproject56-319@ct.gov. The second is by phone, and that is by dialing 860-594-2020. Just leave a voicemail message. Please note that you are referencing project 56-319. That'll just help us basically find your message amongst the other calls that may be about other projects. And then the second, and I will just note this is probably the preferred method of communication this evening, is by using the Zoom Q&A. That is available only to those of you that are joining us through Zoom. If you are joining us through YouTube, it won't be available, and you'll have to use one of the other two communication methods. Additionally, if you're looking for information or more information after this meeting, you can visit the project webpage that we have up there. And with that, I think we will start this evening's Q&A session. I see we actually already have one question that's come in. And this question is from an anonymous attendee who is asking if there will be any lane closures during the week. I'm going to hand that question off to Jean McCarthy with McFarland Johnson.
Yes, it's a very good question. So there will not be lane closures during the daytime hours during the week. During off-peak, being early in the morning, late at night, there will possibly be a lane closure, and that's really needed in order to construct the crossovers. But during commute times, during the daytime, we will not allow lane closures.
Thank you, Jean. I appreciate you responding to that question. Just one other thing I want to make mention of while I've got a chance here before we get other questions in. We do have a link that you should be able to see in the chat there. That will take you to a very short survey. You can also reach the survey by going to the project webpage. If you do have a few moments after tonight's meeting, just to take that survey, we would greatly appreciate it. It just kind of helps us see what you're looking for, making sure that we're getting this information you need out there and giving you all the opportunities that you're looking for. So we'd appreciate it. Let's see, I'll see if any other questions are coming in. And you know what? I don't see anything. I'm actually going to tag Quinn Duffy with BL Companies back in. She can tell you just a little bit more about the project while we wait for some additional questions.
Awesome. Thanks, Jennifer. Again, my name is Quinn Duffy. I'm with BL Companies. I just wanted to give a little more background on the project. I know when I was talking about the purpose and need and how we introduced the New York Bridge into the project, we have actually held 2 public information meetings for this project already. These were held in March of 2019, prior to the addition of the New York Bridge and the finalization of the scope to include that structure. We did a presentation in Greenwich, Connecticut and North Castle, New York. And they were both well received, no real opposition. And we're hoping that with the plan that we've presented to you tonight, it's the same. This will be the last public information meeting that we do have for this project, unless there are significant changes in the scope of work, which we do not anticipate. But if there are, we will again reach out to the public and let everybody know that what those changes are and if they will impact the traveling public or the project itself. So as the project does go into construction, we will do additional public outreach. We will work with both, obviously, Connecticut, New York, and the municipalities in posting on their social media pages and with variable message signs, which are the signs you see sometimes on the side of the road with a message, just letting you know that there's going to be a change in a traffic pattern or a bridge closure or anything similar to that, just to let you know, give you guys fair warning so that you can either find additional routes or just know that you may have a slight delay given the fact that we are reducing the lanes from the 2 to the 3 lanes, or 3 to the 2 lanes, excuse me. It does look like we have a couple more questions that have come in, so I'm going to hand it back to Jennifer Usher. Thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Quinn. Appreciate that additional information. And before we just go to the questions, one other thing I want to add that Quinn kind of alluded to is all the coordination we've been doing with the municipalities, as well as between the 2 departments of transportation. Yeah, we will continue that coordination throughout the design process, as well as the construction phase as well. And with that, I will move to our next question. And so this person is asking, was a full bridge replacement considered? You mentioned the substructure was to remain. It's a great question, and I'm going to hand that off to Quinn Duffy with BL Companies.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, so both rehabilitation and replacement alternatives were investigated. BL Companies, as the consultant liaison engineering firm assisting the Connecticut Department of Transportation administer this project, we prepared what we call a rehabilitation study report, or an RSR, for the bridge, where we investigated both rehabilitation and replacement alternatives. Since the substructure, like you mentioned, was to remain, since it is in fair condition, rehabilitation was really the preferred alternative because it would extend the service life of the structure and minimize the impact to the traveling public. I hope that answers your question. Please feel free to ask another if that's not the case. I'm going to pass it back to Jennifer.
Thank you again, Quinn. All right, and it looks like we have another question that has come in, and this person is asking, are there safety concerns driving on the current bridges? And they're also asking when they were last inspected. And let's see, who can I hand that? I can hand that back off to Quinn Duffy with BL Companies.
Thank you, Jennifer. All right, so this is a good question. You should not be concerned about driving over these structures. Both of these structures are safe to drive on. The Connecticut Department of Transportation does biannual, actually New York does as well, does biannual inspections on all the bridges in the states and rates them, each element of the structure, from 0 to 9 on a rating scale, 0 being that the bridge has failed and 9 being that the bridge is excellent condition. So these structures are in poor condition, which is the rating of 4, but they are absolutely safe to drive on. The Connecticut bridge was inspected by Connecticut the last time in March of 2022, and these are on that biannual inspection basis. Bridges that are have a lower rating sometimes have more frequent inspections, maybe yearly or every 6 months. But these bridges are both on a biannual inspection basis. So like I said, Connecticut Bridge was inspected by Connecticut in March of 22, and I specify that it was inspected by Connecticut because the New York State DOT does inspect both the Connecticut and New York bridges because they do maintain the Connecticut Bridge as well, since there is no way to access it from Connecticut directly. You have to leave Connecticut to get onto the Connecticut Bridge. So the New York State Department of Transportation inspected both the Connecticut and New York bridges in May of 2022. I hope that answers your question. I'll pass it back to Jennifer.
Thank you so much. And as everyone can see, Quinn is a true New Englander with the speed of talk that she can produce. I just have to say, that was quite impressive. A lot of information in a short span. So thank you again, Quinn. Let's see. Another question has come in. This is from Mr. Alexander, and he is asking, it looks like he's curious about rebar coatings. I am going to hand that off to Dave Cull with McFarland Johnson.
Thanks. Yes, we're actually going to be using stainless steel for the decks of this bridge. These are important structures. We want to get the longest life possible out of these structures, and stainless steel is one of the better alternatives when it comes to preserving the life of our bridge decks. So stainless steel is what we're proposing to use for this. So hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dave. And just a reminder that in the Zoom feature that we have, I do know that there is a raise your hand option. Unfortunately, we do not have the option to hear you talk basically through audio. So if you could just either type in your question or send us the question or comment through email or voicemail, that would work best. So I do apologize, but yeah, unfortunately in this particular session, we don't have that option to call on you live, shall you say. And with that, I will move to the next question. It looks like this person is asking, will there be night work? And asking, will I be able to hear construction as a resident? And I'm going to hand this off to Gene McCarthy with McFarland Johnson.
So the answer is yes, there will be night work. Probably the most obvious time will be during the weekend closures. As I said in the presentation, those are 55-hour work periods that will start, on the Friday night and run till Monday morning. They are going to be working Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night to get all of that work done in those periods of time. So you will expect night work on those 4 weekends. Other than that, we're not expecting significant work beyond those 4 weekends at night.
All right, good question, good answer. And I'm going to elaborate a little bit on this, just because I've been working on this project with the rest of the project team for a few years now, and that was really important. We really wanted to minimize the disturbance to the traveling public, just understanding that, there's pretty much a high ADT here, ADT being the average daily traffic. And so we did look at a detour at one point going back several years ago and decided it just really wasn't feasible. So this opportunity really kind of came to us because we were able to come up with a solution that would provide 2 lanes of traffic in either direction, and just really kind of looking at that happening during the weekend. So it wouldn't impact, when you had a lot of cars on the highway. All right, let's see. Oh, I don't actually see any questions in there. I do want to give everyone ample time, though, to submit any questions or comments they have. It does look like we have several folks that are with us this evening. So by all means, I'll just kind of use this opportunity to just repeat. There's several ways that you can get in contact with us. The first is by that email that you see up there. The second is by phone. And then the third is by the Zoom Q&A chat. Just a reminder that the Zoom Q&A chat will only be available this evening. And if you, however, I should say that the email and the phone will be available up until February 9th, where we will then close our comment period. So please feel free after this meeting, should you have any questions that you think of or any comments or concerns that you want to write to us about, please use either that phone or that email. And like I said before, you can certainly visit our project webpage to get more information. But we're looking forward to kind of bringing this project to final design and getting into construction. And we've been working closely between all the 2 municipalities, as well as New York State DOT and CONDOT together. Let's see. We'll see if any other questions are coming in. And nope, I don't see anything yet. Let's see.
Jennifer, I can jump in if you want.
Yeah, please.
Wait for more questions.
Yeah,
awesome.
Please, absolutely.
Again, my name is Quinn Duffy, if you're just joining us. I just wanted to take a second to talk about the coordination that we've done with this project so far. I mentioned earlier about the public information meetings for this project that were held in 2019, but we have met with representatives from both North Castle, New York and Greenwich, Connecticut. I think we've had 2 municipal coordination meetings with them now, and we walked them through the design and construction, very similar to the presentation that we have put on for you guys tonight. And both cities towns were on board with the project, and actually provided us great insight into similar projects that have happened in the area. And one of the recommendations was to include tow trucks on either side of the roadway closures or bridge closures to just assist if there was an accident, which we don't anticipate there being and hope that there isn't, but off chance that there is an accident, we can have those tow trucks quickly clear the accident and reopen the highway to prevent any further delays for the traveling public. Again, like I said, we hope that doesn't happen. And we hope that with all the advanced warning that we'll give the public, that we can definitely reduce the speeds out here and travel through these construction zones pretty safely. But I just wanted to touch on that. So just reiterate the implementation of safety protocols with this project, given the fact that we are reducing the travel lanes from 3 to 2 in either direction just during these bridge closures. We want to be as safe as possible. I'm not sure if we have any more questions come in, but I'll pass it back to Jennifer.
Yeah, no, your timing's perfect. We just had one more that came in.
Oh,
so thank you for that additional information. And this person is asking, where will the contractor place their equipment? That's another good question. And I'm going to hand that back to Quinn Duffy of BL Companies to answer.
Awesome, thank you. So that is a very good question, and that's a question we get on a lot of projects, just because it's a very important thing to know. I mean, we do need a lot of large construction equipment to do these, to construct these projects, and with the photos that Dave Cole with McFarland Johnson had spoke to that showed those PBUs, the prefabricated bridge units, and their erection with those larger cranes, we do need area to store this equipment. During the construction of the crossover, we expect that the contractor will use the median of the highway to store their equipment. During the bridge closures, while the crossover is in place and traffic has been diverted onto the sister structure, the contractor will have the opportunity to store their equipment in between the crossover limits, giving them a little bit larger of an area to work in. With the contractor storing their equipment in the median, they will all the equipment will be far enough off the roadway where it is a safe traveling condition for the traveling public. Hope that answers your question. I'll pass it back to Jennifer.
Thank you again, Quinn. Appreciate it. And I just happened to notice that Mr. Alexander, I believe he has the initials LA after his name. So I'm going to hazard a guess and say that he's a landscape architect. So if I'm correct, I would like to mention that our crossover has been revised from the original concept in an effort to save a whole kind of area of trees. So if you are a landscape architect, I'm guessing that you're going to appreciate that fact. And I just wanted to kind of make a note of it. That was something that was developed through the design phase. And with that, it does look like we've got a couple more questions coming in. And this is coming from Mr. Marchant, and he is asking when were these structures built? Let's see, and I will pass that over to Quinn, BL Companies.
Thanks, Jennifer. I just pulled up the general plan that we showed in the presentation earlier, and both these structures were constructed in 1965. You can see the Connecticut structure here and the New York structure here. These structures were actually constructed by New York State DOT and transferred ownership of the Connecticut Bridge to Connecticut. So it's kind of funny that we now have one structure in Connecticut, one in New York, but they were actually constructed both by New York State DOT in 1965.
Thank you again. All right, let's see. Another question just came in, just asking what happens if the bridge is not ready to drive on come Monday morning. I'm going to actually transfer that over to Dave Cole with McFarland Johnson to answer.
Sure, thanks. Gene and I will probably tag team this question, but so we're structuring this project with what we call incentives and disincentives. So there's the carrot and stick approach that the contractor, if they can get the bridge open and get everything that's prescribed in each weekend closure performed within that 55-hour window, they're going to get a monetary incentive. The flip side of that is if they don't get the bridge open by the time that we say on Monday morning, then there's an hourly disincentive that they're going to be charged every hour that the bridge is not open. So the plan is that the contractor, basically, if the contractor doesn't have the bridge open come Monday morning, they're going to keep working until they get it open. But we've gone through some pretty extensive research. We've scrutinized a lot of the details, a lot of the plans that we're pretty confident that we're going to be able to open this bridge in the time span that we prescribed. I'm not sure if you wanted to add anything to that, Gene.
I think the only thing I would add is that, as Dave had said in the presentation, They are going to pre-assemble a lot of these components. So the contractor will have a very good idea about how all the pieces are going to go together prior to those closures. So they'll have a kind of a dry run, have all the pieces together, and they'll be able to put it together. So we've done a lot of homework and pre-planning to ensure that they can make it happen during the time we've given them.
Thank you both, Jay McCarthy and Dave Cole with McFarland Johnson. And let's see, I think I'm going to actually just go back to Quinn Duffy. I think she wants to add a little bit more information to the previous question.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes, I misspoke. The structures were designed in 1965. This is back to the question about when the structures were built. These structures were designed in 1965, but they weren't actually constructed until 1968. So I wanted to just correct myself on that one. I apologize for misunderstanding. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. I'm just going to give it another minute or so to see if we get any other questions in through email, through the Q&A, or through voicemail. But I think, oh, and then Mr. Marchand is just thanking for the correction. So again, I just want to take an opportunity to really thank everyone who came out this evening to log on and listen to this. I know this is kind of after hours and, you know, definitely into your kind of personal time, but we really appreciate it. A lot goes into these public outreach meetings. We certainly want to give everyone an opportunity to, you know, voice any concerns they have, ask any questions. This is a huge effort that has been put together by not only the Connecticut Department of Transportation, but as well as New York State DOT. So again, we really appreciate your time. I am going to make one last pitch. If you just have a few moments, I would greatly appreciate if you could fill out our survey. It just really helps us kind of improve what we're doing for public outreach efforts. And really does help you guys as well as any other residents and business owners that are going to be nearby projects that we're doing in the future. And with that, I will just send that into the chat. Okay, perfect. There it is. And I do not see any other questions coming in. So I'm going to look at the project team. Are we good? Does anyone have anything else to add? All right, I'm getting a thumbs up from this fantastic project team. So again, thank you, everyone. Big thank you to the project team. And we look forward to completing this project for you. Any questions, comments, please get them to us through the email or phone. You have until February 9th, and we will be glad to reach out to you directly. With that, have a fantastic evening. Take care.